My name is Rob Wiley, and today I'm going to be talking with Austin employment lawyer Colin Walsh about overtime pay. Now, when an employee goes to work and they work more than 40 hours in a work week, is there something that happens about their pay?
Yes, they should be getting overtime pay at a rate of 1.5 times their regular pay.
So if somebody's regular rate of pay is $10 an hour, and then they work 41 hours in a work week, for that 1 hour that they work over 40 hours, instead of being paid $10 an hour, they would be paid $15 an hour.
Yes, that's right. That's what the law requires.
Is everyone required to be paid overtime?
No, there are exemptions or exceptions to the FLSA overtime requirements.
And I think that this is an interesting law. It's one of the oldest laws that we have. The FLSA is the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. It was passed when Roosevelt was president. And knowing that employers would want to get out of having to pay overtime, it simply says that everyone who is engaged in commerce and is suffers or is permitted to work is going to be paid overtime. And then the law provides that certain employees are exempted out of the law, which is why sometimes you'll hear about a position being exempt or non-exempt. And if it's exempt, you might be paid a salary instead of being paid hourly with overtime. But can anyone be paid a salary? Is that the employer's decision, or is that a decision that the law makes?
Well, that's a decision that the law makes. There are certain salary requirements. All of these exemptions are designed to be narrowly construed and have several requirements.
I think the ones that we see the most are going to be what are called the white-collar exemptions. So if somebody is an executive and they're managing 2 or more people, they could be paid a salary. If someone is a professional, like a doctor or a lawyer, they can be paid a salary. But for most workers, you're required to be paid hourly, and if you work more than 40 hours in a work week, you have to start getting time and a half. But we see violations of this law all the time, and I know one of the violations we see is where a worker is misclassified. So what kind of violation is that?
Well, that would be an overtime violation, where an employee should not be receiving a salary, but does receive a salary. That employee is entitled to overtime for all those extra hours that they worked.
So for instance, there is an exemption in the law that says if you're an executive, if you manage people, then you can be paid a salary. But the law says you have to manage 2 or more people. So if you only actually managed 1 person, then you wouldn't qualify for that exemption. These exemptions are very technical. Anytime that you feel like you're not truly being a manager, not truly doing the high-level white-collar work, then I would think it would be worth your time to talk to an attorney to see if, in fact, you're being mispaid. In addition to misclassification, there's another issue where people are worked off the clock. What does that mean?
Well, that means that their employer is making them do work before they clock in or after they clock out on a given day.
So basically, if you're working hours but it's not being recorded on your paycheck. Sometimes we see this where the employer just automatically records your time as opposed to the employee clocking in and clocking out, which would give an accurate rendition of the amount of time worked. The other way we see it, though, is sometimes with deductions or automatic deductions that the employer shouldn't be taking, and one of those is for lunch.
Yeah, if an employee is forced to clock out for lunch, they can't be required to continue doing work during that lunch hour.
Yeah, you have to be completely relieved of duty. I would be very suspicious of anyone eating lunch at your desk. That is indicative that you are not completely relieved of work. If you're having to be available for calls, taking calls while you're on lunch, then you haven't been relieved of duty. And if you add in all those time periods that your employer has deducted for lunch, that could be 5 hours extra a week. And of course, this law doesn't just compensate someone for the money that they should have gotten. It has a penalty built into it.
Yes, that's right. They would get double what they lost and what they should have been paid.
So an employer that is improperly deducting an hour for lunch every week could end up having to come back in and pay an extra 10 hours of pay a week, even more if those are depending on overtime hours.
Yes, that's correct.